Hello, this is Victoria. I am an INFJ, and it's kind of late, so I'm trying not to talk too loudly. I'm at home at my parents' house. Um, but anyway, so this is my first time making a video about uh, Myers-Briggs. Um, I don't know if I'm going to post this or not, but at least it'll be helpful for me, I think, in just thinking through or talking through my thoughts on things. And anyway, so as you can probably tell from the title of the video, I'm going to start this channel, I guess, by talking about my childhood and how my personality type and my functions, introverted intuition, extroverted feeling, introverted thinking, and extroverted sensing, how those have all played out in my childhood. And I've been looking a lot for videos like this, and I haven't found that many on YouTube. So I thought, well, this is my chance. I think this is a niche I can kind of jump into. So, and I feel like this could be really, really long. So I'm going to divide it up into each function. So the first function that I'm going to talk about is introverted intuition. And I'm gonna assume that you already kind of know what it is, because many people, if you don't, please look it up online on YouTube. There are plenty of videos of people describing introverted intuition, and I don't think I need to add much more to that. So I'm just going to talk about how it has manifested in my life, starting from as a child. So this one is really difficult because, it's my first function, and yet, it took me a while to start seeing it, but once I started seeing it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is everywhere. So I wrote down, I have, in this notebook, I can't read it, I have, 10 pages I've written of, examples of not just introverted intuition, it's just, everything kind of INFJ-ish that I could think of, that I want to talk about. So I have, 4 pages of introverted intuition in my childhood. So, okay, I've been talking for almost 3 minutes and I haven't given any examples yet. Okay, I'm going to start now. Okay, so one example that comes to mind is, it's one thing that happened very often, was I'd be driving in. So first of all, my family, I have a younger brother, a mother and father, and they're all, as far as I can tell, sensors. I'm pretty sure my brother is an ISTP, my mom definitely ISFJ, and my dad, I'm pretty sure, is an ESFP. So, needless to say, nobody really understood the connections I was making. So, we'd be driving in the car, and it'd be maybe a long drive. It's kind of dark out, so of course I'm kind of looking out the window, but I'm not really looking out the window. I don't know where we are. I'm thinking about things, and maybe we'd have a short kind of conversation in the car about something, and then I'd mull over it in my mind for a while, because it would go quiet again, and I'd be mulling over it. Maybe 20 minutes later, I would ask a question. Maybe, I don't know, I just think of something. Maybe we had been talking about some movie that we all just saw. Maybe we saw Finding Nemo or something and talked about it, and then, it's quiet again. And then all of a sudden, I ask something about, why do people drown? Or something, something totally, that seems totally unrelated. But in my mind, it made perfect sense, because I had been thinking about this thing for like 30 minutes, maybe. So you're thinking about Finding Nemo, and I'm thinking about the ocean, and I'm thinking about like, I wonder why people are so fascinated with the ocean. And I was like, maybe because it's kind of scary. And then maybe I'm thinking of like, well, why do people be scared of the ocean? Maybe we have this inherent fear of like drowning, and I wonder where that came from. And then I'm thinking, I wonder how people drown. Is it like, what actually happens to your body? And then I asked, Mommy, how do people drown? And then she's like, what? Where did that come from? What are you thinking about? And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? We were just talking about Finding Nemo. And completely unrelated to them. My brother, I remember he would always say, Victoria, you're so random. Like, where'd that come from? And this is something that happened so many times. Like, I just remember so many times just sitting in the car, and I would just ask a question or make a comment on something, and that just catches everyone totally off guard. And to me, I was like, what? You don't see the connection of everything? And so looking back, I can be like, wow, that was my introverted intuition, um, making lots of connections in my mind that I think most people weren't making. And as a result, I just felt like, I don't know, well, misunderstood for sure. And kind of, I eventually stopped telling people or asking questions. I kept a lot more of my intuitive side to myself, because I felt like, well, they all think it's stupid anyway, so why should I bother letting it out there? So that's one example. Let's see, I wrote quite a lot in my notebook. So, I mean, there's a lot of the typical sort of like daydreaming a lot, never quite being all there. My parents would ask me to do something, and I would nod my head, and then I wouldn't do it. And it's not that I didn't want to. It just would like in one ear, out the other, because I wasn't thinking about it. I was like, maybe my mom would ask me, okay, Victoria, after you finish watching your TV show, I want you to, wash the dishes. And I'm like, okay, Mom. And my TV show finishes, and I go straight upstairs. And it's not that I was trying to be like a bad daughter or like, um, to like be lazy. I just didn't. It didn't register in my mind because my mind was totally somewhere else, and I would automatically answer, and I would automatically give the right responses to things. And this is not even just with requests, but in conversations with people. Sometimes I would ask them a question, like I'm having a conversation with someone, but my mind is totally elsewhere. Like I'm thinking about, oh, I don't know, this cool idea for a story that I have, and I wonder what I should do with this character or something like this, or maybe I can like write this story and then I'll post it online, and I'm having a conversation with someone about totally something completely unrelated, and I'll ask them a question, maybe like, oh, like what's your name, blah blah, or something, and then they'll tell me, and then 5 minutes later I realize, oh crap, what's their name? And I'll remember that I asked them, so I feel embarrassed. I don't want to ask them again. Or like, I remember like, I'd be in a new place and I'm asking directions. Maybe like at school, first day of school, new school, and I'm asking how do I get to this place? But in my mind, I'm thinking about, okay, I wonder what my teachers are going to be like, or I wonder what this class will be like. Maybe I should have gotten that. I should have read this book over the summer or something, so I'd have been better prepared or something. And then they'll tell me the directions, and then they'll walk away, and I'll just be like, oh crap, where was I supposed to go? Because I remember asking, but I didn't pay attention to the answer. So things like that. I mean, I don't know if that's directly related to introverted intuition, but I think it's a general state of like, I want to say absent-mindedness, or just like my mind was in another place. Like I knew enough to interact with people. Like I could on the surface be like, yeah, I'm with you, but I'm actually totally in my mind, and I completely would miss out on details, and like, like I said with the whole like driving around in the car thing, like I was not looking out the window really. I was looking out the window, and maybe something would catch my eye, and then I would start thinking about something, and then that would continue. And this I realized was kind of a problem when I started learning how to drive. I realized I didn't know how to get from like Walmart to home. And we had gone there like hundreds of times probably, but I didn't know which street to turn down. They're like, Victoria, what have you been doing? Like, you've been here so many times. And I'm like, yeah, but I didn't pay attention to where you guys were turning. um, names of streets, like, I don't know. I mean, even like places that I've lived for years, I couldn't give you directions to get anywhere. I'd be like, the store is kind of in this general area close to this other store. Okay, I feel like I'm getting a little far away from childhood. I mean, this is like, okay, back to when I was younger. Okay. Young, little me. So I was clumsy too. Again, the whole like mind being elsewhere thing, absent-mindedness. I was very creative. That's one thing, very imaginative. I was always writing stories. I was making up my own characters. I drew a lot too. I wanted to be an artist. That was my dream. Still kind of is, I think. There's a painting I did. Anyway, so lots of drawing and writing. I have boxes and boxes I can see in my closet, and like notebooks full of stories and books. I was always writing, and it was exciting. And I mean, a lot of times I would have these grand ideas and plans for where the story is going to go, and then I'd write like half of it, and then I would just stop. And then I would move on to something else, and then I would write, and then I would stop, and then I would do all this planning. I loved planning. Like, I would create all these character bios and backstories and like all this stuff about these characters, and then get into the story summary, and hardly ever actually got around to writing the actual story. I would do like far more planning than actually writing the story. Because that was the fun part for me, was like the brainstorming and the thinking of the characters and all that stuff. The actual writing is kind of tedious, actually. I mean, I would do it to make my ideas a reality, but I would much rather just think about it. And I used to do that a lot. That's another thing that's on my list. You see on my was something I used to do. I still kind of do it. I'm not gonna lie. I called it imagining. Now listen to this. So I got very obsessive when it came to my interests. So drawing. I wanted to know everything about drawing. I was drawing all the time. I was reading books about drawing, and then I got really into like certain TV shows. I was really into superheroes. So Teen Titans, Justice League. Those are like my two favorite TV shows like ever. And I was obsessed. And I would think about them a lot. I would think about these characters. I wrote fan fiction. I made tons of fan art. I read a lot of fan fiction. Avatar: The Last Airbender, that was another one. Those three. Avatar, Teen Titans, and Justice League. Those are the three that I was like super into. And I would have my own ideas for how I wanted the show to go and how different stories that could happen with certain characters. And especially, when a show ended, that really made me sad, because I was like, I'm never going to see these characters again. And so I could live in the world of fan fiction, and this is in middle school. This is like just, time, middle school. But even before that, actually, I used to do this. I thought, well, you know what? I can just imagine how I want the story to happen. And so what I would do is, usually at night, so I'm supposed to be asleep, but I wasn't, because I was like an insomniac. I would stay up in bed, and I would go through in my mind what I wanted to happen. So I'd create my own episode in my mind, and full of dialogue and like all this stuff. And then, usually I'd fall asleep while I was making the story, but I'd usually remember kind of where I left off. And then the next night I would kind of recap, and then I would continue my story in my mind, and I would do that same story for a while, and then maybe I'd get bored of it, and I'd think of a new situation for these characters. And so I was creating fan fiction in my mind, basically. It was fan fiction without the writing part. It was just like in my head. And I did this with Teen Titans, with Avatar. I continued doing this in high school with Rurouni Kenshin. So I remember I wouldn't even just do it before going to sleep. Maybe, like I said, I'd be in the car, long drive. I'd be kind of looking out the window, but not really. Or I'd just like kind of close my eyes. And then I'd imagine, okay, like Kenshin and like, just these, elaborate stories, and I called it imagining. And I got so into it. It was so enjoyable. I would look forward to it. I would look forward to going to bed because then I could do my imagining. And I remember I'd been doing this for a couple of months, almost every night, actually. And I thought it was so cool. And I wanted to tell someone. So I remember in like 5th grade, I told this girl, I was talking to my friend about it a little bit, and he didn't really understand. And there was this girl who I wasn't really friends with her, but like she was sitting next to me, so I like tried to tell her. I was like, yeah, like, well, there's this cool thing I do, like, like when your favorite shows are over, you can still like they can still continue in your mind. And I do this thing I call it imagining, where I just like imagine how I want the story to go in my head. And she's like, that's stupid. And I was just like, I just felt so like, am I crazy? Is something wrong? Am I the only person who does this? Oh man. So that's, I think, one way that my introvert intuition was just like, I was living in my mind. Like, I was happy there. I looked forward to like being alone when I could do this. So, and no one seemed to understand it. They all thought it was weird. So I stopped telling people, and then, yeah, I like I said, I kept doing it in high school. I didn't tell any of my high school friends that I used to do this. And even in college, sometimes I would do that. Always fantasize. I mean, eventually the fantasizing kind of shifted from like TV shows and anime, I guess, to like more realistic things. And then I just started going into more like imagining all these conversations I'd have with people and that I want to have with people. But anyway, oh my gosh, 17 minutes. Okay, I feel like I'm rambling. There was way more that I wanted to talk about. So yes, family full of censors, felt misunderstood. Bad listener, yeah. Daydreaming, clumsy, forgetful, imaginative, creative. Yeah, I was very inspired by small things. Like I would see something on TV, and that would give me an idea for like great comic, a great story. Like when I saw Pirates of the Caribbean, I like got into pirates for a little while, and I wrote like so many stories about pirates, and like, just like something. I would wait to be inspired. Like I trusted my intuition. It seems like I would just kind of walk around and like look around me and sort of pick up books and sort of flip through them and looking at the covers of books too. I love looking at book covers, like going to the library and looking at book covers because then that could inspire me to write a story. So I like doing that. Another thing that I think is really interesting, I don't know how common this is, if other people as kids have had, or even as adults, have had this experience, but I think the right word is existential crisis. I think that's the right word. So when I was about maybe probably 9 or 10 was the first time that I experienced this. Basically, I've never had to describe it out loud, but if I were to describe it, it was just like I was just lying on my bed and I started thinking about what does it mean to exist? What is this like universe and like God and all this? Because I'm Christian, I grew up Christian, and I remember just like looking at my body and my hands and just thinking, what is this? Like, and like, gosh, how do I explain this? I mean, it frightened me so much. Just like the sudden kind of realization of like, oh my gosh, what is this consciousness? What is this? And just like I mean, my heart started beating really fast. I was kind of looking around me, and I'm hearing my brother talking downstairs, and I'm like, what is all this? What does it mean to be like? And like, what is all this? And I was just so scared. And the only way that I could kind of get out of that was to just like occupy myself with something else. Like I think I went downstairs and I was like trying to interact with people, but then I was looking at them strangely, like, oh my gosh, like what are they? Like what is it? How do I even describe this? I guess you could say that's when I became aware of my own consciousness. Maybe that's the way to describe it. And that happened to me. I think I was 9 or 10, and it frightened me so much because I was like, oh my gosh, like what do I do? What does this mean? And the only way I could kind of calm myself was thinking, okay, whatever this existence is, be a Christian, do what you're supposed to do to go to heaven, because if you don't, you will experience pain. And you don't want pain. That's all you gotta know. Like, whatever this existence is, pain is unpleasant. So do what you can to avoid the pain and have the good experience. And that's kind of how I tried to reason myself out of this like freaky state of mind. And this would happen to me kind of on and off every year. So maybe I would, because once I started thinking about it too much, because I in the back of my mind, I knew that like this thought was there, but then like I would try to stop myself from thinking about it too much, because then I would frighten myself again. And I would be like, oh my gosh, this happened especially in the shower. Actually, like I would just be taking a shower, and then I started thinking about like, what does this mean to like inhabit this body? And what is it like for other people? Is it the same for them too? Are they experiencing what I'm experiencing? Like, why am I in this body and not someone else's body? Like, why am I me? And oh my gosh, it was so scary. It still is. Like, if I think about it way too much, then it freaks me out. So when I see myself thinking about it, I'm like, no, stop. Distract yourself. I don't know if it's a good thing or not. Maybe I should think about it more. But anyway, so that's one thing, was just suddenly becoming aware of my consciousness and like it freaking me out. And not being able to, like, I never told anyone any of this. I didn't think they would understand. I wonder, is this a common thing for people to, at some point, become aware of the strangeness of existing in your body? I don't even know how else to describe it, but I don't know, maybe if someone else has experienced it, they can let me know and tell me, maybe they can describe it better. So that's one thing that I think is definitely, seems very sort of introverted, intuitive, is to these existential what if, what am I questions at a young age. I mean, I think everyone at some point in their life will think about these things, but I think for a child, I don't know of many children, I don't think, thinking about those things. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but that's one thing that I thought maybe could be attributed to being an introverted intuitive. And sort of related to that was, of course I was always thinking about like lots of why, what if questions as it related to like consciousness and existence. And I remember when I was maybe like 7 or 8, looking at bugs, ants in particular, and like looking at them and wondering, I wonder what it's like to be an ant. Like, I wonder if the ant knows that he's an ant. I wonder, how come I wasn't born an ant? I wonder, and I would think, wow, I was so lucky. Out of every animal in the world, ants and dogs and cats and like plants and things, like, that I happen to be born a human. How odd is that? And not only a human, but a human in this time in America. And I was like, because I knew when I was young, obviously, like most kids know about, like, you always hear about kids are starving in other places and how horrible it is for a lot of other kids. So I was like, wow, like, oh my gosh, what are the chances that I would be born here and have this consciousness of a human being? Like, whoa. And I thought it was so odd. And I used to wonder, though, what do ants think about? What do dogs think about? I don't know. Gosh, wow, this is like 25 minutes long, and I haven't even gotten through half of this stuff. Oh, I talk too much. Okay, I'm capping this at half an hour. I can't do more than half an hour. Sorry, I don't want to like talk too much. Okay, so like I said, let's see. In school, I was always very interested in social studies. I loved history, loved English class too. It was very easy for me. Comparing and contrasting things and making connections, like that was very easy and obvious to me in some ways. I could easily see how certain historical events led to others and how all these things were related and relevant to us today, which maybe is why I was so interested in it, was because I saw that it was relevant. It wasn't just like a bunch of facts, but like these things mattered to us now. And that's how I felt about history back then, and maybe that's also attributable to my teachers. I don't know. I was also always very drawn to psychological, dark things. Like I said, I was really into superheroes, and those shows like Justice League and Batman Beyond, those shows used to get dark, like dark, and I loved that. I mean, my favorite episodes were like not the happy ones. They were the like real, like the ones that I feel like they wouldn't air. They wouldn't have for like they wouldn't have those kinds of episodes and those, for like modern kids, because they've gotten a lot like more censored, I feel like, with like a lot of TV shows nowadays. But I love that stuff. I wanted to see like characters at their lowest. I wanted to see what people did when they were like brought to the breaking point. This is like kind of embarrassing to say, but I enjoyed seeing my favorite characters like in pain, and not just like physical, but like psychological. I don't know why, but I wanted to see what they would do. I wanted to see them like, I wanted to understand people and the human psyche, I guess, and like seeing it pushed to the extreme was fascinating to me. And I don't know if something's wrong with me. I don't know. Maybe that's not an INFJ thing at all, but that's something that always fascinated me, was people and these characters. They weren't real, but I don't know. They were real to me in a way. And that's another thing. It's like I would personify everything. Like everything had feelings. Like I had played with dolls. I had stuffed animals. Like, oh, I have one here. Okay, this is Dolly. I've had her since I was 4 years old. I love her. But actually, like, I would feel bad if I didn't play with one of my dolls for a long time, because I was like, oh, I'm probably hurting her feelings. Like, I knew the doll wasn't real, but like I felt like, oh, I need to like show her some love, or I even like books, like I would feel bad if I didn't want to throw things, so I was like, oh, but like poor book. Or I don't know, like everything had a feeling, everything like somehow had feelings. Maybe this is more FE related and not NI, but I personified things. They meant more. They weren't just like a book or a doll. They were more than that to me. They meant something. So this might be, yeah, that might be FE. I'm not an expert. I should have said this in the beginning of the video. I'm not a Myers-Briggs expert at all. At all. I've done a lot of reading and watching lots of videos, so I feel like I have a good understanding of the functions, at least my functions. But when describing yourself and how you exemplify the functions, I think, yeah, it can be difficult because any and FI work a lot together in the INFJ. So I think, yeah, it's getting a little difficult for me to distinguish the two. Oh my gosh, 30 minutes. Ah! Wait, okay, I feel like I had at least one or two more things I wanted to mention. I guess just to summarize, I mean, I've given some examples of how I should put this doll down. Poor dolly. Okay, how I use introverted intuition. But to kind of sum up, I guess, in my childhood, in general, people would say that I was kind of quiet until I knew you. Then I would talk a lot. Thoughtful, observant, and my dad used to call me nosy, eavesdropping, whatever. But I wanted to know what was going on. I was very perceptive to people, and I did well in school. I was good at that. I was good at language arts and history and that sort of thing. Writing, creative, imaginative, always thinking about things. But I wasn't just a dreamer, I was very idealistic, for sure. I imagined, I could have planned out my life, I'm gonna marry a prince, and then we're gonna live in this castle, and then I'm gonna have 3 kids. One of them's gonna be Jennifer, the other one's gonna be Jordana. I had this all planned out. But gosh, intuition, it's still, I felt like I understood it, and now I feel like I don't. After trying to explain my experience with introverted intuition as a kid. I will make another video with how a more mature introverted intuition is manifested in my life over the past few years. I would say I just graduated from college. So, well, not just, I guess it's been about a year now, but I have some examples from college of introverted intuition in action that I want to share. But that will be for a later video anyway, but that will be after this series. So I am I've already got the first 10 videos planned out. But anyway, next video will be me talking about how extroverted feeling has played itself out in my childhood. And that one I think is going to be a lot easier because I understand extroverted feeling a lot better. Okay, so thank you for sticking around this long. If you have, I guess you have if you're still watching. And I will see you in the next video if you decide to watch it. Okay, bye.